properly. Next, number 15. After that, friends visiting Mysore were begged to make a point of going to the zoo and seeing how Baba was getting along. They reported that he was well but looked very thin and sad. All the keepers at the zoo said he was fretting. Fretting means worried, unhappy. So, when the friends of the narrator or the friends of narrator's wife were moving to Mysore, so they were begged, means the narrator's wife was telling them, narrator's narrator's wife was telling them, just please visit to the Mysore Zoo and see the health of the Bruno. And they also they did it as they were asked. And as the friends came back to the Bangalore, they were giving the information to narrator's wife regarding Bruno. And what the reply, what was the means information, they all were saying to the narrator's wife regarding Bruno that he was good, but he was looking thin and sad. He was looking thin and sad. Bruno was Bruno was worried, and Bruno was not eating properly, and Bruno that's why was losing his weight, and it looked sad. All the keepers then, for 3 months I managed to restrain my wife from visiting Mysore. Then she said one day, I must see Baba. Either you take me by car or I will go myself by bus or train. So I took her by car. So after 3 months, narrator's wife, after 3 months, narrator's wife told to the narrator that if the narrator would not take her to the Mysore with his car, then she would go herself with bus or by train. So narrator's wife became very angry. Why she became very angry? Because narrator did not allow her to go to the Mysore zoo. So now she became very angry and she told directly that she would go herself by bus or by train. So then narrator took her to the Mysore Zoo by her car. Para 16. Friends had conject, conjectured that the bear would not recognize her. I had thought so too. But while she was yet some yards from his cage, Baba saw her and recognized her. She howled with happiness. Sorry, he howled with happiness. She ran up to him, petted him through the bars, and he stood on his head in delight. So when narrator and narrator's wife were going to zoo, some of the friends were saying that Bruno could not recognize the narrator and narrator's wife. And even narrator was thinking same. But the narrator was surprised, the narrator was amazed when the narrator saw that his wife, when his wife was there in the zoo, some distance, means some far away, Bruno saw from the cage. Bruno, the sloth bear, saw from the cage and became very happy. Means Bruno's appearance or Bruno's behavior seemed that Bruno recognized the narrator's wife, and he was very happy. Even the narrator's wife became very delighted to see Bruno, and she ran to the cage and started touching Bruno on his body. But Bruno was inside of the cage. Okay, and the narrator's wife was outside. Narrator's wife was sitting outside of the cage and Bruno was standing inside of the cage, and they both were very much happy to see each other. Both Bruno as well as narrator's wife were very much happy to see each other because they loved each other very much, and it was the real bonding between narrator's wife and the sloth bear Bruno. Next para. For the next 3 hours, she stood not, she would not leave the cage. She gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and what not. Then closing time came and we had to leave. My wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly. Even the 100 curator and the keepers felt depressed. As for me, I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. So next 3 hours, both narrator's wife and the Bruno was together, and narrator's wife fed Bruno many foods, cake, ice cream, tea, many food products. Narrator's wife fed him, fed Bruno. But when the closing time came, when the closing time of the zoo came, narrator's wife started crying. Even Bruno started crying. And not only Bruno and narrator's wife, but some of the people who were in the zoo, means curators, caretakers, some caretakers of the zoo, they also saw them and started crying. Not actually, they were feeling sad. The caretakers of the zoo, they were feeling sad because of narrator's wife, because of the love between narrator's wife and Bruno. Next para. Oh, please, sir, she asked the curator, may I have my Baba back? Hesitantly he answered, Madam, he belongs to the zoo and is government property now. I cannot give away government property. But if my boss, the superintendent at Bangalore, if the superintendent at Bangalore agrees, certainly you may have him back. So, narrator's wife asked one of the curators that she wanted her Baba back. She wanted the sloth bear back to her home. But the curator said it was not possible for him to give him Bruno, to give her back Bruno. But he answered, yes, but he answered that if the superintendent of the if the superintendent of the zoo allowed, then it is possible. What happened? Sir, who was the curator? Curator means one of the caretakers. One of the caretakers of the zoo was standing beside them, and he was asked that she wanted Bruno back. So he told that it was not possible for him because he was only a simple caretaker and it was not under his capacity to give Bruno back to narrator's wife. But he said, if superintendent means head of the zoo, if superintendent head of the zoo, if he agrees, then narrator's wife could take Bruno back to her home. Next para 19. There followed the return journey to Bangalore and a visit to the superintendent's bungalow. So the narrator and narrator's wife returned to Bangalore, and the superintendent was living in the same place, Bangalore. So they went to superintendent's bungalow, are tearful pleading, Baba, I are both fretting for each other. Will you please give him back to me? He was a kind hearted man and consented. Not only that, but he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. So finally, the superintendent of the zoo agreed, and he wrote a letter to the caretaker of the zoo that give a means send a cage, means send Bruno with a cage to Bangalore to the narrator's home. Para 20. Back we went to Mysore again, armed with the superintendent's letter. Baba was driven into a small cage and hoisted on top of the car. The cage was tied securely, and a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was accomplished. So, with the letter of the superintendent, narrator and narrator's wife went again to the Mysore Zoo and handed the letter to the curator of the zoo, and with the means because of the letter, the curator arranged the Bruno inside of the cage, small cage, and settled on top of the car, nicely tied up and slowly driven to the Bangalore back with the beer. 21. Once home, a squad of coolies were engaged for special work in our compound. An island was made for Baba. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and was surrounded by a dry pit or moat 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. A wooden box and once housed fold falls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep at night. Straw was placed inside to keep him warm and his baby, the gruntled. Okay, gruntled means rugs twisted, gruntled stump along with his gun and piece of bamboo, both of which had been sentimentally preserved since he had been sent away to the zoo, were put back for him to play with. So finally, Bruno came back to Bangalore to the narrator's house, and now Bruno was very big. That's why it was not possible to keep inside of the home. That's why a separate island. Island means a small man-made island. Okay, a small man-made island was created inside of the narrator's bungalows campus. Inside of the narrator's bungalows campus, a small island, and around the island a big pit was there. Pit means it was dig. Okay, it was dig 7 feet dig and 6 feet wide. Okay, it was there around the island, and Bruno was kept in that small island with a wooden box where he could sleep at night, and some of the playing tools, the sticks that he used to make the gun, another wooden piece of wooden the piece of wood which he used to make the small baby. So means narrator and narrator's wife made a small island the for the sloth bear, for the Bruno, and Bruno started living there peacefully. Sometime the narrator's wife went there and spent some time with Bruno. They play each other. Okay, next 22. In a few days, the coolies hoisted the cage on the island and Baba was released. He was delighted, standing on his hind means hind legs, means back legs. He pointed his gun and cradled his baby. My wife spent hours sitting on a chair chair there while he sat on her lap. He was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. So he was now, Bruno was 15 months old and was very big. So sometime narrator's wife used to go there and spend some time with Bruno. Okay, Bruno also used to sit on the lap of the narrator's wife like a baby. 23. The way of my wife, the way my wife reaches the island and lives, it is interesting. I have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. Putting one foot in the loop, she she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6 foot gap that means constitutes the width of the surrounding pit. The return journey is made the same way, but who can say now that the sloth bear has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristics? So, we know that around the small island there was a big pit, the 6 feet width and 7 feet deep. So, how the narrator's wife managed to visit the island? There was a small rope bridge. There was a small rope bridge. Okay, and through the rope bridge, the narrator's wife went to the to the island, and spent some time with Bruno. And then again she came back. So Bruno started living happily in the island, and the narrator's wife also very much happy. So at the end of the story, we came to know that both the sloth bear, Bruno, called Baba, and the narrator's wife, they were happy, and it was possible back. Okay, the Bruno back to means started living on a small island. Why? Because of the real bond of love. So this is the story, and this is the title of the story, the bond of love. The bond of love between narrator's wife and the sloth bear, which was rescued by the author when it was very small, but it was given the name Bruno and later Baba, and now the Baba was very big, and still there was a great love between narrator's wife and Bruno.